I've got good news, everyone. The director of Barbarian has come out with a new film and he is 2 for 2. The bulk of this video is going to be a spoiler filled discussion. So if you've seen the movie and you're looking for a good spoiler discussion about all the characters and plot beats, stay here. But we are going to open with a spoiler free review and recommendation. Guys, Weapons is fantastic. The basic setup here, I'm not going to give too much away at all because I think you should know very little going into this movie. The basic setup here is an entire classroom of children has gone missing, -1. All right. And, you know, where they all go. They all left the house at 2:17 a.m. No one can find their kids. The town's very upset. That's it, all right? It's a mystery thriller about a whole classroom of kids going missing, and it follows the teacher of this classroom. It follows a local cop. This movie is structured like Magnolia, actually. It's following a bunch of individual characters that all converge at different points in a really satisfying way. It almost feels structured like a Seinfeld episode at times, but like the most demented, horrific Seinfeld episode you've ever seen. Now, going into this movie, I was a bit nervous, all right? It does look like big studio horror filmmaking from the marketing, all right? Someone left a comment on my review of the Alison Brie Dave Franco movie talking about the fact that Weapons looked a bit too mainstream Hollywood studio. And I don't want to sound pretentious, but I did kind of get where they were coming from. I wasn't expecting this to be full of substance and patience. I was worried that it was going to be quite a dumb horror movie, you know, with a great initial setup. And the reason I was nervous is because there was this poster, and I think the poster gives way too much away, but there was this poster going into the movie being like, experience Weapons in 4DX. And if you guys don't know 4DX, we don't have it here in Australia, but it's the type of cinema where like the seats shake and you get like water and mist blown at you and all this stuff. And I was like, that's not the type of thing I want for my horror movies. You know, like if I'm watching something like Bring Her Back or Hereditary or Midsummer, I don't want an experience like that, you know? So I was a bit nervous this was going to be loud, obnoxious, and brash, kind of like these post-Conjuring movies. But guys, this is a good movie, all right? This is a fun, campy genre thriller, all right? This isn't a meditation on grief. This isn't a kind of slow burn A24 feeling horror movie. This is visceral, fun, pulpy, take your friends out to the movie sort of horror, done expertly well, all right? Expertly well. It isn't even a knock on this movie that it isn't too heavy and deep thematically, because the story is thrilling, the set pieces are fantastic, and again, that structure is incredibly engaging. This movie goes in a bunch of different directions that are really, really exciting. The performances are all good enough. If I have minor criticisms, I am rating this a 9 out of 10, by the way. I'm very high on this. If I have minor criticisms, it's just some of the lead characters I wish had a little more depth. You know, this whole setup here that 17 children are missing. I think the number was 17, but a bunch of children are missing. You don't really feel it amongst the town. Like, yes, there's a general sense of paranoia, which I appreciate, but I just didn't feel this massive sense of like, oh my God, are children being trafficked? Where are they? Like, you know, it didn't spend much time on that. I didn't spend much time in the grief, and maybe the movie wasn't going for that, but I just wish I felt that tension and paranoia a bit more before we got into what the movie was, if that makes any sense. Because I think when children are missing, it's an inherently horrific and unnerving idea, and I just think it could have dialed that up just a little before getting into the plot. But at the same time, I think there's some really interesting, gooey character stuff to break down and analyze in the spoiler section, which I'm really looking forward to get to. Again, the set pieces here are fantastic. Avoid the second trailer, by the way. That was another thing that gave me reservations going into this movie. The second trailer was loud, obnoxious, brash, and gave away way too much compared to that first trailer. So go see this movie. If you're a horror movie fan, if you liked Barbarian, you will love this movie. If you didn't like Barbarian, you may not like this. But if you like Barbarian, go see this movie. I think it's absolutely wonderful. It's full of great performances, great writing, great structure, and just fantastic set pieces. Before we get into the spoiler section, I will just say I've seen someone in their reviews say that this movie is all about social paranoia. And I mean, yes, I guess, but also like, bruh, if 17 kids went missing, I don't think that's paranoia. That is literally like, oh my God, my children are missing. Like, I think a town being scared and on edge is completely understandable. Like, yes, you can say that it's an allegory for that, but like, I mean, it's kind of that thing where it's like you're looking for subtext in something that is just text. But we will get into some thematic stuff in the spoiler section. Let's get into it right now. 3, 2, 1. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this video, please consider gaining a membership to this channel. I talk about every single show and movie I've watched, as well as books, anything else, media rants, just anything, right? Every 2 weeks. So everything I've watched, I talk about in a podcast. It's the price of a cup of coffee, and it really helps out the channel. Thank you so much for considering. Links are in the description below, and back to the video. spoilers, we're going to go character by character. Now, I can't remember the order of the characters exactly, but I think I've got it pretty close. So we're going to go through each character, talk about those characters, and also what comes up in their sections, and just any nitpicks, any great things that come out of that exploration. Let's just go. Before we do, I just diss the idea about social paranoia. What I do maybe think this movie is more about is how we use and manipulate children to fight our battles kind of politically and also socially. Children are often used as bargaining tools and rationalizations for arguments, like politically and emotionally. You get what I mean? You'll see in divorce, people are using and manipulating children. You'll see in politics, people will be like, oh, why can't we just think of the children? I'm thinking about the next generation. It's like, no, you're fucking not. You get what I mean? So it was giving me that vibe. And on top of that, there is this visual with Josh Brolin's character when he's having this dream, and in the dream he's searching for his child, and over the house where the children are, there's a visual of an AR-15. And I thought that was very striking imagery that was alluding to mass shootings. I don't think you can kind of avoid that connotation. We're dealing with a movie that's focused on schools and children, and then there's a visual of AR-15, and we know these kids are being used as weapons. And I think there might be something there about how when school shootings happen, again, children are used as these bargaining tools for both sides to push their agendas. You know, you have one side going like, well, if the teachers had guns, this wouldn't have happened. And you have the other side going like, we need to get rid of guns completely. So it did remind me of that a bit. Now, let's get into character by character stuff. So first thing is Justine. I love that little dream sequence where the auntie showed up on the roof, all right? This woman that's behind it all, who's taken the children and like kind of hypnotized them with this spell and using them as weapons. I love that she was kind of invading their psychology before they'd actually figured out who she was. You could see this as a nitpick and a flaw, but I just found this like existential and freaky. Like even before they've met her, she's invading their dreams to an extent. Great scare, great visual with her on the roof, and not a loud, obnoxious jump scare. I really appreciated the restraint in the scares. There was that fantastic scare where Justine, played by the woman from Ozark, who's like, if you want to stop me, you're going to have to fucking kill me. But there's this fantastic scare where she's in the car, and this woman comes out, the parent of the only child left alive. The mum comes out, right? And she's like possessed like a zombie with the scissors. Unnerving visual. That's another great thing with this movie. The way it uses physicality is very unnerving. You have the kids running around in essentially T poses, which should look goofy, but the execution is just fantastic. Especially when Josh Brolin is playing the footage backwards on his little home recording device. Really eerie, really eerie. And I love the visual when the principal gets possessed and he's sprinting through the town. Cut. Whether it's the feet, whether it's the head, just beautiful framing and a horrific visual. The visual of his eyes kind of bulging because his face and head is so swollen from bashing his partner's head in is horrific. Anyways, we've kind of spiraled. Let's go back to character by character. So the big thing that impressed me with this movie, I will admit, at the start, I thought the pacing was a little off, dare I say, with Justin and Archer's sequence. This is the woman from Ozark and Josh Brolin, but in these sections, I just wish I felt the tension a little more. Again, like, yes, we're being told that Justine's having a hard time, but I would have loved to explore that more with how the town has ostracized her, and also just a sense of paranoia in her. I wasn't really feeling that, like, oh my God, 17 children are missing vibe as intensely as I'd hoped. Yes, it was there. Yes, there were lines about it, but I really wanted to feel that just kind of sorrow and like, what the fuck has happened sort of vibe. And I wasn't getting it quite. But what I did love in this section is when she meets up with Paul. There's a couple things I really like with this section, right? So she meets up with her ex-boyfriend who's a cop, and she does kind of convince him to drink. He goes like, I don't want to drink. I'm sober. I'll make a mistake here. He does mention that he's not with his current partner anymore. He says they're kind of on the rocks, and she does light up at this and then kind of pushes him to drink. And it felt a little pushy. It felt a little morally questionable, dare I say. And I think what's interesting about this section is it put me off her character slightly, right? I was kind of like, I'm not going to say he didn't make his own choices, but in that moment I was like, she's a little pushy and manipulative there. And now he's done something he didn't want to do. Even ignoring the sex, just the fact that he's trying not to drink and she pushes him to drink was a little like, But where it gets more interesting is in Paul's section, we find out he was actually lying. He is flat out cheating on his partner. He's lying about their their status. He's actually trying to sleep with Jennifer Garner. And that doesn't mean what Jennifer Garner did was okay. My issue with Jennifer Garner here is she doesn't know that he's lying.
Hey guys, Marshall from editing. I know her name is Julia Garner. I just kind of tripped up a couple times in the video. Sorry.
I think what I love about the writing here is she was doing a shitty thing based on what she knew, all right? He was saying, I don't want to drink, whatever. She was pushing him to drink so they could have sex. I think where it gets more interesting is the fact that he was actually lying about the relationship status, meaning he was wanting to have sex. So it's just this really well done writing. And he seemed initially like quite a likable character. You know, initially when he woke up the next day and was a bit pissy at her, I'm like, fair enough. You know what I mean? You were trying not to drink. She kind of pressured you into drinking and now you're feeling fucked. You're going to work. Like, I actually got it. But then when we see his section, he is quite an asshole. Like, he punches that kid. You're like, oh my God. So yeah, really solid writing and probably some of my favorite writing in the movie, to be honest. Her section mostly revolves around her trying to make some attempts to unpack the mystery. And then she gets her hair cut off. Hard cut to Archer, Josh Brolin's character. And again, this was another one where, like, yes, I definitely felt the loss. I think I just could have done with more of it. I would have loved to see his relationship on the rocks a bit more. This is a movie, for some reason, where if you pay attention to it, it feels like no one really has a job or partners. Like, yes, he has a wife, but you don't really feel the relationship. Again, give me some tension, give me some relationship falling apart, or like, why can't you find our son something? It just felt very sparse in that regard, but it's got so much to do that I'm sort of like, okay. But in his section, the part I really appreciated, again, was that dream sequence. I thought that was fantastic. And I also thought when they start converging at the petrol station, I'm pretty sure this was in his section, and the principal comes running, it's just a fantastic sequence. Really, really exciting. I also love the way he kind of pieces together and figures out the general location of where they are. I love the touches of him sleeping in his child's room. They don't draw a bunch of attention to it, but it's good visual storytelling. I did really like it. Speaking of the principal, and again, these are minor nitpicks. These are the things that are stopping me from giving it a 10 out of 10. Instead, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. I did think those early sections where they were trying to convey that she's a really caring teacher, that Justine's a really caring teacher, I thought initially I actually really liked how well it was written. I was like, okay, I'm getting what you're putting down about how she like maybe crosses some boundaries, but only in an attempt to do the right thing. And that's going to pay off into the fact that her character is going to solve this thing. But there were a couple lines in that initial interaction that just felt a little stilted and a little like for the audience. But that's really the only time the movie is doing this. And aside from that, I thought this movie was really well written. I also liked how smart the characters were. I liked that Archer and Justine very quickly kind of cotton on to what's going on here, particularly Archer. He has that dream with the AR-15 and the 217. He very quickly realizes that these kids are being weaponized. And I like how he's figuring that out. It's a really fascinating idea. He talks about the fact that the principal seems weaponized. It was cool that he was figuring this out so quickly into the movie. Next, we got Paul's section. I really like Paul's section because, yeah, I did like him initially. I found him a really compelling character. And very quickly, he's off-putting. He punches this kid. Now, I do think the way he bargained with this kid was simultaneously fucked up, but you get why the kid would take the deal. He's like, look, I'm going to let you go even though you were breaking and entering because I punched you. Let's just call it a day. I'm like, I don't know. If I was in that position, I might take a punch, but it's insanely fucked up. But then he goes back to his officer and his officer's like, yeah. So just keep going on jobs and you'll fill up your camera with the footage and like that'll delete eventually. Don't worry about it. And the big moment where I was really rocking with this movie, because I was a little like, okay, it's good. It's not fantastic. The moment where I went, this movie's got the sauce, is when we get into the converging of Paul and James's section, right? So Paul's the cop, James is the druggie. When they converge and the druggie shows up to the police station and he's like, I told that fucker to stay away. Awesome. All right. And then we get the druggies section and that is fantastic. And I also appreciate that the filmmaking is entirely different in this section. It's a lot more kinetic, frenetic, feels a lot more like Uncut Gems. I really liked this touch. But when you start piecing together that, oh, he showed up to the police station not to dob on Paul because he's figured out where the kids are, you're like, oh my God. I actually thought the druggie was going to get shot before he could tell anyone and they were never going to find the kids. I was genuinely mad sense of paranoia. This is where I was really into the movie. I love when he was breaking into the house and he figured out that the kids were in the basement. And then I had another thing. I'm like, how have the police not check this house? There's no way the police didn't check this house when there's only one kid that survived from the classroom. That's the first place you go. And so I'm very glad that they kind of wrote around that. They put the kids in the forest. Is it a bit crazy that 17 kids managed to go in the forest and not get caught, sure, but like whatever, I can deal with that. It's a genre piece, fine. But yeah, I love that section where it was overlapping. Here's where I was like, oh, the structure is really cooking. This is exciting. This is exciting. I love that a primary motivation for him is the $50,000 reward, and I appreciate all the discussions around it. And it's just devastating when he gets locked in the car and dragged back into the house. Like a truly devastating moment. You were really riding with him in this like uncut gem sort of way. Like I was rooting for him to get more money. I was rooting for him to get his bag. I was rooting for him to find those kids. Like I got invested in this druggie's little side quest, and just to have him dragged into the house was actually quite heart-wrenching. I felt bad for him, especially by this scary cop Paul. We also have a section around Benedict Wong's character. This is the principal, and I really love his section. The section here is fantastic. I actually love all the rituals and the character work they build up around him. He's got a partner. I don't know if it's a boyfriend or a husband, but I absolutely loved the section where they both have matching Mickey Mouse t-shirts. We saw the Mickey Mouse t-shirt earlier, so you've got this sense of dread, this bomb under the table, very Once Upon a Time in Hollywood style. But I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is heartbreaking, you know. And they've got all their little hot dogs with their sauce. I love the little social conditioning moment where the evil auntie shows up and she's like, can I just come in, and like, can I have a bowl of water? And they don't want to let her in at first. They're like, oh, I don't know. And then the other one's like, what are you doing? Let them in, like, come on. And you're like, oh my God. And it was really well done. And that scene before was genuinely unnerving. And I thought the performance from Benedict Wong when she comes into the office was really good. Like, she's saying weird shit. You know, she's like, they're overcome with consumption or something like that. And he's like, what are you talking about? I thought that whole section was really well done. And like, how scary to be at home and someone's just like, oh, I tracked you down. Like, let me come in. And yeah, all of that was great. The tension was fantastic. It was reminding me of Barbarian, those early sections of Barbarian. But yeah, really cooking with a lot of gas. Like, this was fantastic. And the whole ritual going, and we see it play out. And then you get this payoff where Benedict Wong is trying to kill his partner. He can't help it, you know, and then he starts vomiting and like bashing his head open, and it's good gore. It's pretty full on horrific gore. Like it's actually quite a lot. And yeah, the swelling of the face and the practical makeup effects. Again, I referenced Together before, but I thought that was a movie that was bogged down by big studio filmmaking. I won't spoil Together, don't worry, but that was a body horror movie that really needed to go for it. And it felt a little tame given its kind of big studio presentation, where I was watching this movie and I'm like, wow, you've given this a great marketing budget, great cast, you know, Josh Brolin's here, how cool, fantastic cast, fantastic marketing, fantastic press tour, and we're watching a movie where someone gets their skull completely caved in by someone else's head, and then they've got their eyes bulging out. I was really struck, and there's a great gore scene towards the end of the movie, which we will get to, but I was really loving this, and again, the structure here is just going off. I thought all of it converging here was just completely exciting and captivating, and I'm like, oh my God, that's going to fade into the petrol station scene, and then we get the petrol station scene where the principal is chasing Justine around, and it's just so well filmed and visceral. And again, I love that unnerving shot of the principal just running and cut and like different locations, feet, face, all of it is fantastic. They do that trick again later with the child. I think his name is Alex, the only one of the class that's left alive, when he's feeding his parents. And that's where the movie's cooking. So let's get to Alex's section. So this is the big expo backstory dump. Look, at the end of the day, the reveal here, it isn't the greatest thing in the world, all right? But again, I kind of feel like this is genre fiction, you know, like this isn't transcendent, this isn't powerful, this isn't super haunting. At the end of the day, this is just an auntie seems to want the answer to eternal life or youth. From what I understood, by possessing these kids and weaponizing them, she was feeding off their energy and she was growing her hair back. Like, that's vaguely the impression I got, is that it benefits her while draining the life from other people, right? Good enough, I guess. I didn't need everything explained because the thrills we got and the action we got were good enough, but we get the backstory to what's going on here. The part I found really captivating about this backstory was less so the auntie and more everything around Alex navigating this impossible situation. So the auntie / grandma, whatever it is, shows up, kind of takes over the household, instantly possesses the parents. You see again how we weaponize our emotions, we manipulate our children. This auntie is like, oh look, they're stabbing themselves. Look, your parents are stabbing themselves because you're not doing what you're meant to do. And now this kid has to take care of the parents. parents. This kid has to grow up and be an adult and spoon feed his children. I think here is where the movie's actually kind of cooking thematically a bit, right? This idea that like kids are forced to grow up early by immature parents or awful family structures, right? And they end up having to be the adults. Like this is a visualization of that. This is where I'm like, okay, the movie might be cooking thematically a bit. Really enjoyed this section. I loved how smart this kid was too. Even getting all the name tags felt so much easier. I love the visualization of what he was scheming initially with like, okay, I'll take that eraser head and I'll take that off that kid. And then he just looks over and goes, oh, I'll just take all the name tags. Awesome. And I'll give them to the auntie and she'll set my parents free. And I also appreciate this is a horror movie similar to Bring Her Back, where the facial damage, the gore actually has practical consequences. Like when the parents are stabbing themselves, you're like, that's going to leave permanent scarring. You know what I mean? Like I was seeing there like, oh, even if you get your parents back, they're going to forever have these, kind of messed up faces. Like how, even if they come back, like how are they going to deal with this? I love that there is actually no explanation as to how much, is it like Get Out where you're in the back of someone's brain witnessing a possession, or are you overcome with rage like 28 Days and 28 Years Later, where it is technically you just turned up to like 15. Like I kind of like that there's some ambiguity there, especially given the ending and how this is going, because I'm like, are these parents in there somewhere? Do they see what the kid is doing, or are they forever demented? And I think the fact that the bad guy is stopped at the end, right? The auntie is torn apart by the kids. There's no reversal, right? These kids are just left in this fugue state, which I love, and we'll get to the ending when we get there. But all of that is really rich and really interesting. But this section around Alex, dude, I saw a reviewer be like, oh yeah, that section was a bit boring because there were no scares. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? This is the issue sometimes with the way people engage with horror. Because I think horror is in a really fantastic place right now where we're getting some of the most exciting stories wrapped in these horrific, gooey little presentation packages. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like sci-fi used to be this way where we could explore very human, abstract emotions in a visual way that kind of works in two ways. It's either a heavy emotional experience or it's just like cool visuals. And I feel like horror is in this fantastic place lately where Bring Her Back really is about struggling to let people go. Hereditary is about generational trauma, is about what you pass on to your children. And the horror is also great, but kind of secondary. Midsommar is just a great movie about a toxic relationship. And to me, the cult stuff almost fades in the background, given how good that relationship stuff is. And the reason I say all this is I think horror movies are just cooking lately. So for someone to watch Weapons, where you get this amazing little vignette about this boy having to take care of his parents by force and just essentially baby them, and it's so fascinating and so well performed, for someone to be like, oh yeah, that was a bit boring. I'm like, dude, like were you just there for like eyes getting gouged? Like go watch Saw. Sorry, I'm not trying to be like reductive or mean. People are allowed to have their own individual experiences, but I'm just like, oh, like, you know what I mean? Like, so many people are just like, was it scary? Yes or no? And it's like, I just think it's such a shame because there's so many horror movies that, yes, don't scare me on a visceral jump scare level, but like they kind of linger in the back of your head because you're like, ugh, And I feel like this movie at times actually does get to that. But yeah, this brings me to another nitpick, all right? So Justine and Archer, is that his name? Yeah, Justine and Archer shopped the house. They know at this point that people are getting weaponized. Josh Brolin has put that out as a theory. They saw what the principal was doing. The woman, Justine, was like, yeah, the principal is mad. That was not like him at all. Like, whoa. The cop comes out and is frankly weird as fuck. Ominous as, all right? And I'm going to say this now. Normally in horror movies, I am actually a bit generous to dumb character decisions. I actually am, all right? A lot of people are like, as if you go down there, as if you do that. These people don't know they're in a horror movie normally. All right. Nothing crazy's happened. So just we're expecting something. But like in Barbarian, the whole basement section, like I'm like, yeah, sure. But I'm trying to not spoil any movies. But like there are plenty of movies where I'm like, okay, if you don't think you're in a horror movie, you're going to check the attic. If you don't think you're in a horror movie, you might check that for peace of mind. How many times have you and I heard a bump in the night and gone, okay, let me check? We're not expecting some dude with a chainsaw to like cut us in half. But this was dumb. All right. This was too dumb for me, all right? And I the cop wasn't like nicely inviting them over. He was literally like, he was weird. He knows how to talk. They know each other on a personal level. Then they go in the house, this dark, ominous as fuck house where she saw two people sitting there possessed earlier in the movie, and the cop is like, I'm like, dude, get out of there. There is no way. There is no way. But look, aside from that, get this fantastic section where Josh Brolin gets possessed. Again, like, I wish I was a little more, I wish I felt the loss more, because that moment where he sees his kid in the basement should have been this, oh my God, he's found his kid. Oh my God, he's found the kids. But I was kind of like, yeah, okay. You know, but when he's taking down Jennifer Garner, I loved all the sections where Paul was trying to punch Jennifer Garner. I really hope that's her name. But Julia Garner. Her name is Julia Garner. I'm sorry. Julia Garner. He punches the cupboard. It's very visceral, uncomfortable violence. And then we get the payoff to this movie, all right? The payoff to this movie where the boy figures out the curse, snaps it, turns all the kids on the auntie. It's campy. It's hysterical. Like, it's simultaneously really, really funny and also just incredibly horrific. The gore payoff where they tear her apart, the gore was fantastic. And again, a movie that isn't pulling its punches despite being in the mainstream studio Hollywood system. On top of that, we get this fantastic section where Archer, Josh Brolin's character, punches James, the drug addict, like 9 times. I was pissing myself laughing. Now, I saw this in pretty much an empty theater, so I was really the only one laughing. But like, guys, this was so funny. Like, literally 8 times he had to take out this kid. So good. Now, let's get to the ending. I love the ending. I love the idea that these kids are locked in this limbo state. The narration kind of says, like, some of them are even starting to speak again, all right? So it's like slowly they might get some humanity back. I love that we don't have the answers. We're put in the place of these children. Sorry, we're put in the place of the parents, sorry, where it's like, are my kids going to come back? Are they even normal? Like, how do you recover from any of that? Like, will they remember what they saw? Like, who knows? All right. I actually like the ambiguity. It leaves us quite unnerved. I like that it ends on Josh Brolin carrying his kid. I'm just going to say, what would have brought this over to pretty much a 10 for me? All right. What would have like brought up this movie slightly? I think we needed a Parasite type coda, all right? I know this movie kind of seems to take place over seemingly a few days, all right? It's been like a month since the kids went missing, and then it takes place as it's exploding over a couple days. So I get you don't want to leave that structure. I really would have loved just sections of similar to how the kid was feeding his parents, Josh Brolin feeding his kid, and it's kind of falling out of his mouth. The kid watching his old cartoons. Maybe he turns on Mad Max Fury Road, because we saw that poster in the kids' room, right? Like, turns on these movies. It's like, come on. And the kids just, you know, a bit like that. I would have taken, yeah, like a Parasite sort of coda where we kind of give some space, give some time, let us feel the tragedy of like having your kid back, but they're not quite your kid. They're a bit of a changeling. They're back, but they're not quite right. That would have made the ending just land a lot more haunting, you know? And I think that's, for me to really have like put this movie into like 10 out of 10 categories. And this is my like 4th or 5th favorite movie of the year. I think I actually like it better than Sinners. I think it holds together a bit better actually, but I would have loved just a little more lingering on, and again, I just don't think the movie earns it either. We didn't get enough time of Josh Brolin talking about his kid, or really this feeling that these kids were just missing. Like, do you guys kind of get what I'm saying? Like, I do feel slightly that this movie, some of its characters felt very narrow in their presentation. Like, you didn't get much of a feel for like their jobs or their lives outside of it, minus a few. But Josh Brolin especially just felt a little thin for me. I needed a little more from him for this ending to land, because when he was holding his kid, I'm like, dude, I can't even name the kid. Frankly, I don't know the kid's name. I don't know how. Like, of course you loved your kid because he's your kid, but you know what I mean? It's that kind of thing where, like, yes, if a dog dies, I always am going to care that a dog dies, but have you earned it? You know, like, of course I'm glad he's back with his kid. Just would have loved a little more depth, but guys, it's a good fucking movie. It's a good movie. This is a really, really good movie. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, everyone. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, please consider gaining a membership to this channel. It's the cost of a cup of coffee, and every 2 weeks I do a podcast talking about every single movie, show, book, anything that I've watched, read, consumed in a given fortnight. And I also just vent about general media things. Thank you so much, and have a lovely day.